Okay, let's dive into a really interesting case from 1997 Hong Kong. It starts with a robbery investigation and seems, well, pretty straightforward initially.
Right, because the main evidence was video footage.
Exactly. Video recorded confessions from the defendant himself. We're calling him Zang San for privacy. So you'd think conviction secured, case closed.
But that's where this gets complicated. Because what happens when the confessions themselves are challenged?
And that's the core of our deep dive today. You, our listener, provided us with the actual appeal court documents, that's CACC 7419998, and digging into them really forces us to look hard at, well, how reliable confessions are and how the justice system works under pressure.
It's a fascinating look at that balancing act, isn't it? The need to solve crimes versus the absolute necessity of protecting an individual's rights. This appeal really puts that balance under the microscope.
It really does.
Yeah.
So Zhang San, he was initially found guilty of two things: conspiracy to rob
Which got him 4.5 years.
and possessing an offensive weapon in public.
Another 9 months for that.
Right. But they were set to run concurrently. His appeal, though, argued the whole conviction was unsafe.
And the absolute crux of it, the linchpin, was whether those video confessions should have been allowed in as evidence in the first place.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. How did the prosecution initially make their case?
Well, according to these documents, it relied quite heavily on police surveillance beforehand. They watched Zang San and 2 others.
Noted their movements.
Yeah, including seeing someone put a plastic bag into the boot of the car Zang San was driving. Later, they arrested these individuals at a restaurant on Fukwing Street.
And inside that plastic bag, in the boot.
3 knives.
Okay, so the weapon possession charge seems, well, pretty direct based on that.
It does. But the conspiracy to rob charge, that almost entirely rested on what Zang San allegedly said in those video recordings. Supposedly details about planning a robbery.
Oh, okay. But the defense, they painted a completely different picture, right?
Completely different. His lawyer argued really strongly that those confessions were inadmissible. Basically, the court shouldn't even look at them.
Why? What was the reasoning?
The core claim was coercion. They argued Zang San was pressured by the police. Not just, during the filming the videos, but even before that.
Coercion how? This is where it gets quite serious, isn't it?
Very serious. The defense alleged threats, even physical violence by police officers.
Wow.
And they also claimed he repeatedly asked for a lawyer and wasn't allowed one, asked to make a phone call, and again denied.
Imagine being in that position, cut off under that kind of alleged pressure. It sounds terrifying.
And critically, these weren't just words, just claims made by the defense. There was something else.
What was that?
Objective evidence. A medical examination. It was done by a government doctor just a few days after the arrest, August 14th, 1997.
And what did the doctor find?
The report documented injuries, scratches on his left hand, bruises on his neck, and abdominal bruising, too.
So injuries that line up with his story of being assaulted.
Exactly. They were consistent with his allegations. And this medical report, it's crucial because it's independent evidence supporting his account. It shifts the burden, regarding whether those confessions were truly voluntary.
Right. Physical evidence potentially backing up his claims of mistreatment. And like the appeal court pointed out, these videos were pretty much all the prosecution had for the conspiracy charge.
Precisely. They were the primary evidence.
So the whole case really hangs on this question. Were the confessions given freely or were they forced if they're ruled out?
Then the conspiracy conviction essentially collapses.
Yeah.
The appeal really boiled down to whether the trial judge got it right when deciding to admit those videos, especially with these serious allegations and the medical evidence floating around.
Okay, so fast forward. The appeal court reviews everything. What was their final decision?
They decided to overturn the conviction.
They quashed it.
Yes. Their judgment went into detail about why they had significant concerns regarding the safety of the original verdict. One major issue is how the trial judge seemed to handle the evidence from Zang San and his co-defendant.
What do you mean?
The appeal court felt the judge sometimes treated their testimonies and statements almost as one package deal, rather than carefully considering each defendant's case on its own.
Ah, so not looking at Zang San's specific arguments and evidence separately, kind of blurring the lines between him and the other person.
That's exactly the concern. The appeal court highlighted specific examples from the trial judge's reasoning. Things like the claim that police pointed guns during the restaurant arrest. The judge seemed to dismiss both accounts together.
Okay.
Same thing for requests the co-defendant apparently made during the arrest, or the allegations that police coached them before the video interviews. And crucially, even the evidence of assault and that medical report.
So the appeal court felt the judge didn't properly pull these apart and weigh them for Zang San individually.
That's the finding. They felt this collective treatment could have led to an unfair assessment of Zang San's specific situation. The principle of individualized justice is fundamental, each person's case on its own merits. What happened to one isn't automatically true for the other.
That makes sense. What else did the appeal court focus on?
Well, this is interesting. They also raised serious questions about the police's own account of the arrest.
How so?
They specifically queried the police claim that no guns were drawn during the arrest at the restaurant.
Why question that?
Because the police suspected these guys were armed enough that some officers wore bulletproof vests. The appeal court basically said, hang on, would experienced officers really not draw weapons in that kind of high-risk situation? It seemed unlikely to them.
Questioning the plausibility of the official story there.
Right, and while the court noted this might not directly prove the later confessions were involuntary,
It adds weight to Zang San's claim he was roughed up during the arrest.
exactly, it casts a shadow of doubt. If the police account of the arrest itself is questionable, it makes Zang San's claims about what happened feel more credible, which in turn raises more flags about the subsequent confessions.
Okay. And then there was the whole process at the police station too, right? The timing.
Yes, that was another area of concern. Zang San was held at the first police station for quite a while. He went through 4 separate interrogations there.
And what did he say in those?
According to the documents, he denied the charges consistently.
4 times denying it.
Yes. Then he gets transferred to a different police headquarters, specifically for video interviews. The appeal court questioned why the transfer happened, and they also noted a delay of nearly 2 hours before that first video interview even started. What happened in that time?
More unanswered questions.
Yeah.
And what about the video interviews themselves? Was there anything odd there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The appeal court highlighted a really stark contrast between the 2 video sessions. In the first video interview, the police apparently used numerous leading questions, questions phrased to suggest the answer they want.
Right.
But even then, Zang San's answers were described as brief, indirect. He apparently even mentioned they were planning to abandon the alleged robbery plot later on.
So not exactly a confession.
Not at all. But then you get to the second video interview.
That is
Totally different. The police asked fewer leading questions this time, according to the judgment. And yet, Zang San gives this detailed confession admitting directly to the conspiracy to rob.
Whoa, that's quite a shift. From brief, indirect answers and talk of abandoning the plan to a full, detailed confession.
It's a dramatic turnaround, isn't it? And that was a massive red flag for the appeal court. They explicitly questioned what could possibly have happened between those 2 video sessions to cause such a complete change in his willingness to confess and in such detail.
Yeah, you can see why they'd be concerned. So if you put all these pieces together...
That's what the appeal court did. They looked at the cumulative effect. The judge maybe not separating the defendant's cases properly, the doubts about the arrest itself, the whole circumstances around the interrogations and transfer, and then these really stark inconsistencies between the 2 video confessions.
It all added up.
It added up to significant doubts about the safety and soundness of that original conviction. The court felt it just wasn't safe to let it stand.
Okay. So let's recap the outcome for everyone listening. The Court of Appeal looked at all this. The concerns about the trial judge, the questions around the arrest, the timeline, the odd shift in the video confession.
And they overturned Zang San's conviction. He was cleared.
Wow.
So what here? The reason this case is so instructive for you listening is it really shows how the legal system has to grapple with evidence, especially confessions. It highlights just how vital it is to make sure any confession is genuinely voluntary.
But the result of pressure or threats or anything improper.
Precisely. Even when you have some concrete evidence, like the knives here, the evidence tying someone specifically to the planning conspiracy needs incredibly careful scrutiny. This case is a powerful reminder of that.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? When a justice system is aiming for the truth, what are the most crucial safeguards we absolutely need? How do we prevent coerced confessions, especially when there are allegations against the authorities themselves? It underlines that need for constant vigilance, for really critically examining every single piece of the puzzle in the pursuit of a truly just outcome, something definitely worth pondering.